A tale of appearances and true worth. In the Grand Hawthorne Ballroom of Boston, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the city's most exclusive charity gala. Women adorned in designer gowns and diamonds glided across marble floors, while men in tailored tuxedos exchanged business cards disguised as small talk. Among them stood Olivia Blackwell, adjusting her sapphire necklace that perfectly matched her elegant dress. Beside her, Victoria Hamilton smoothed her black designer gown while Rebecca Pierce beamed in her navy blue ensemble with silver accents. The new hospital wing better be named after someone worthwhile this time, Olivia remarked, eyeing the room critically. Last year's donors were hardly established. As the women nodded in agreement, a newcomer entered the ballroom. Sarah Morgan stood in a simple beige dress modest, unadorned, and painfully plain compared to the couture surrounding her. No statement jewelry, no designer clutch. Her auburn hair was styled simply, her makeup minimal. "Who invited her?" Rebecca whispered, not bothering to lower her voice. "And in that dress, it looks like she's here for a job interview, not a $5,000 a plate charity event." Sarah moved through the crowd with quiet confidence. At 34, she carried herself with a natural grace that required no embellishment. She paused to study the architectural renderings of the Children's Hospital expansion. Tonight's designated cause, her eyes focused on details others overlooked. What none of these socialites knew was that Sarah had spent the morning touring the hospital's current pediatric ward, learning the names of young patients and promising a little girl with leukemia that the new wing would have windows facing the garden where butterflies gathered in springa. Promise Sarah knew would be kept. "I don't believe we've met," came a cultured voice beside Sarah. Olivia Blackwell extended her hand, diamond bracelet catching the light. Olivia Blackwell, hospital board fundraising chair. Sarah turned, offering a genuine smile. "Sarah Morgan, it's lovely to meet you." Olivia's smile remained fixed as her eyes assessed Sarah's attire, searching for a designer label and finding none. "And what brings you to our little gathering tonight? Are you with the medical staff?" "No," Sarah replied simply. "I'm just passionate about children's health care." Victoria and Rebecca drifted closer, circling like elegantly dressed sharks. "We don't often see new faces at these events," Victoria commented. Champagne flute poised delicately in manicured fingers. "The Hawthorne Gala is usually quite exclusive." Sarah nodded. "The invitation mentioned the pediatric oncology wing. It's a cause close to my heart." Rebecca exchanged a quick glance with Olivia, eyebrows raised. "Well, every small contribution helps, I suppose. Though tonight's donors are mostly in the 6- and 7-figure range. It adds up," Sarah agreed pleasantly. Olivia's eyes narrowed slightly. There was something about this plain woman's confidence that unsettled her. "Your dress," she began, voice dripping with false concern, "is it vintage?" The question hung in the air, its true meaning transparent. Victoria barely concealed a smirk behind her champagne glass. "Just simple," Sarah replied, unperturbed. "I find elaborate designs distracting." "How practical," Olivia replied, her tone making the words sound like an insult. "We must introduce you to Jonathan Wells. He's our biggest donor from last year, $5 million for the emergency department. Johnny loves meeting everyday people." Sarah's eyes reflected a quiet wisdom. "I'd enjoy that." As they guided Sarah across the ballroom, Olivia subtly signaled to others in their circle, rolling her eyes when Sarah wasn't looking. Whispers followed in their wake. "Who brought the secretary? Is that dress from a department store? Poor thing, she clearly doesn't belong here." Dr. Thomas Bennett, the hospital's chief of pediatrics, approached their group with a warm smile. "Ladies, wonderful to see you again." His eyes brightened upon seeing Sarah. "Ms. Morgan, I didn't know you'd be here tonight." Olivia's perfect eyebrows arched in surprise. "You two know each other?" Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Bennett continued enthusiastically. "Ms. Morgan visited our pediatric ward this morning. Spent hours with the children. Little Lily hasn't stopped talking about the butterfly garden you promised her." Olivia's smile tightened. "How charitable." "But Dr. Bennett, Ms. Morgan was just about to join us in meeting Jonathan Wells." "Ah, Johnny's caught up with the mayor at the moment," Dr. Bennett replied. "Perhaps Ms. Morgan could share her thoughts on the new wing design while we wait. Her perspective might be valuable. Rebecca gave a silvery laugh. Thomas, darling, I'm sure Ms. Morgan is more interested in the canapes than construction plans. This is rather technical, after all. Sarah remained silent, her expression betraying nothing. Actually, Doctor, Bennett replied, his tone cooling slightly. Ms. Morgan asked some remarkably insightful questions about our pediatric care protocols this morning. I'd value her input. Olivia smoothly intervened. Thomas, we shouldn't overwhelm our guest. These events can be intimidating for newcomers. She turned to Sarah with practiced condescension. The donor's circle operates quite differently from regular hospital visitors. It's all rather complex. Across the room, the hospital's executive director ascended the small stage. Olivia's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just moments away from revealing our major donors for the new children's wing. She whispered to her friends, "This is where we shine, darlings." Sarah glanced toward the stage, then at her watch. "If you'll excuse me, I need to step out for a moment." "Of course," Olivia replied, barely concealing her relief. "The restrooms are down the hall to the left, though I'm not sure they can do much to help with that dress." As Sarah walked away, Rebecca leaned in. "My goodness, Olivia, wherever did they find her? She looks like she wandered in from a job fair." The hospital probably invited some everyday heroes for publicity photos. Olivia replied dismissively, "You know how it is, they need to show diversity in their donor materials. The working class makes for touching brochure stories." Victoria nodded smugly. "Did you see her expression when you mentioned Jonathan's $5 million? I thought her eyes would pop out of her head." The women laughed, crystal glasses tinkling like wind chimes as they clinked them together in solidarity. Completely unaware of the tidal shift about to upend their carefully ordered social hierarchy, Sarah slipped back into the ballroom just as William Harrison, the hospital's executive director, tapped the microphone. The crowd quieted, jewelry glinting under the chandeliers as Boston's elite turned their attention to the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a historic chapter for Boston Children's Hospital." Harrison began, his voice resonating with practiced gravitas. "The new pediatric oncology wing will revolutionize how we treat our youngest cancer patients." Olivia and her circle positioned themselves prominently near the front, champagne flutes refreshed, expressions expectant. This was their moment, where donations were announced, names immortalized, and social pecking orders reinforced. Sarah stood quietly at the back, observing. "Before we unveil our donor wall," Harrison continued, "I want to share something extraordinary. For the first time in our hospital's 150-year history, we've received an anonymous donation that has left our entire board speechless." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Anonymous donations weren't uncommon, but the director's tone suggested something unprecedented. Olivia frowned slightly. Anonymous donors didn't fit neatly into her social calculations. They couldn't be ranked, impressed, or leveraged for future connections. This individual contributed $25 million specifically for our pediatric oncology wing. Harrison announced, with the single condition that the new garden terrace be called Lily's Butterfly Haven after one of our young patients. Dr. Bennett's eyes widened, his gaze immediately searching the room until it landed on Sarah. "While we normally respect our anonymous donors' privacy," Harrison continued, "this particular benefactor has given us permission to acknowledge them tonight, as they are present in this very room." Olivia's group straightened imperceptibly, each woman mentally calculating if her family could have secretly made such a donation. Without her knowledge, our extraordinary benefactor has a unique understanding of childhood illness, Harrison explained. 20 years ago, she herself was a patient in our hospital, fighting a battle no child should face. Today, she continues that fight on behalf of others. The director looked across the ballroom. "Ms. Morgan, would you please join me on stage?" The room fell silent, then erupted in confused whispers. Olivia's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips, her expression caught between disbelief and horror. "There must be another Morgan here," Rebecca whispered frantically. But Sarah was already moving forward, her simple beige dress parting the sea of designer gowns like Moses at the Red Sea. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she ascended the steps to the stage with quiet dignity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harrison announced, his voice carrying over the whispers. "It is my honor to introduce Ms. Sarah Morgan, founder of the Morgan Foundation for Children's Medical Research and our lead benefactor for the new oncology wing." Olivia's champagne glass nearly slipped from her fingers. Victoria's mouth formed a perfect O of shock. Rebecca clutched her pearls as if seeking reassurance from their solidity. "Ms. Morgan's foundation has funded groundbreaking pediatric cancer research across the country," Harrison continued, "and her personal contribution of $25 million is the largest single donation in our hospital's history." Sarah stepped forward to the microphone, her simple dress now seeming less a fashion faux pas and more a deliberate choice, statement about values and priorities that made Olivia's designer gown suddenly feel ostentatious. "Thank you, Director Harrison," Sarah began, her voice soft but unwavering. "When I was 12 years old, I spent 9 months in this hospital fighting leukemia. The doctors and nurses here didn't just save my life, they showed me what compassion truly means." The room hung on her every word, social hierarchies momentarily forgotten as they glimpsed the depth behind her unassuming exterior. "Today, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to give back," Sarah continued. "The Morgan Foundation was created with a singular mission: to ensure that every child, regardless of their family's financial circumstances, receives the same quality of care that saved my life." Dr. Bennett was beaming with undisguised pride. Across the room, Olivia and her friends had gone pale, their earlier mockery replaying in their minds with devastating clarity. "Lily's Butterfly Haven will be a place of healing and hope," Sarah explained, her eyes bright with purpose, "because sometimes the smallest Beinschwether butterflies or children can teach us the most profound lessons about transformation and resilience." As Sarah stepped away from the microphone, the ballroom erupted in applause. Director Harrison invited donors to view the architectural plans for the new wing, and the crowd surged forward, many casting curious glances at the unassuming woman, now revealed to be Boston's most significant philanthropist. Olivia remained frozen in place, her world tilting on its axis. The woman she had dismissed, mocked, and patronized just minutes ago wasn't just wealthy. She was a legend in philanthropic circles, with resources that dwarfed the Blackwell family fortune, and Olivia had asked if her dress was vintage. As the crowd migrated toward the architectural display, Sarah found herself at the center of a swirling sea of attention. Board members who had barely glanced at her earlier now competed for her acknowledgement. Donors who had whispered behind their hands now beamed with manufactured familiarity. Through the pressing crowd, Sarah caught sight of Olivia and her friends huddled in urgent conversation, their glances toward her carrying a mixture of mortification and calculation, the latter troubling her more than the former. Dr. Bennett appeared at Sarah's side, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "I wanted to see their faces when they realized," he admitted quietly. "Is that terrible of me?" Sarah's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I didn't do this for the reveal, Thomas, though I admit it does make a point. 25 million points, to be exact," he replied with a chuckle. Then, more seriously, "Lily hasn't stopped talking about her butterflies. You've given her something precious, hope with a timeline, something to look forward to." Sarah's expression softened at the mention of the young patient. Some promises matter more than others. Their conversation paused as Olivia approached, her designer heels clicking purposefully across the marble floor. Victoria and Rebecca flanked her, their expressions schooled into practiced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Ms. Morgan," Olivia began, her voice honey-sweet, "what an absolutely wonderful surprise. Had we known of your foundation's important work—" "But you didn't need to know," Sarah interrupted gently. "That's rather the point, isn't it?" Olivia faltered, her social armor developing its first visible crack. "It rather appears to have been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Sarah replied, her tone kind but direct. "You saw what you expected to see, a woman whose worth you measured by her clothing and connections, rather than her character." Victoria stepped forward, diamond earrings catching the light. "We meant no offense. These events have certain expectations, standards." "Yes," Sarah agreed, "and tonight has certainly been illuminating about what those standards truly are." Rebecca, growing uncomfortable with the directness of the exchange, attempted to pivot. Your foundation sounds fascinating. Sarah, may I call you Sarah? Perhaps we could discuss your involvement in our annual fundraiser luncheon next month. The exposure would be beneficial. To whom? Sarah asked quietly. The question hung in the air, its implications unmistakable. Director Harrison approached, breaking the tense moment. Ms. Morgan, the mayor would like to personally thank you for your extraordinary contribution. Sarah nodded graciously. Of course. As she turned to follow the director, she paused, looking back at the three women. The children's wing opens in 6 months. When it does, I hope you'll visit not for a ribbon-cutting photo, but to meet the children whose lives will be transformed. Their perspectives might surprise you. Left behind, Olivia's carefully constructed facade crumbled further. Did that just happen? She whispered to her friends. 25 million, Victoria murmured, the number hanging between them like an indictment. And we treated her like she wandered in from the street. Rebecca's gaze followed Sarah's retreating figure. Who exactly is she, beyond the foundation? Olivia pulled out her phone, fingers trembling slightly as she typed. Her eyes widened as results populated her screen. The Morgan technology fortune, she breathed. Her parents were Robert and Margaret Morgan, the tech pioneers who revolutionized medical imaging. They died in a plane crash 10 years ago. She inherited everything. How much is everything? Victoria pressed. Olivia looked across the room. Sarah stood with the mayor and hospital board. Her simple beige dress now the most powerful statement in the room, not because of its design or cost, but because of the woman wearing it. A woman who had the means to outshine everyone yet chose understanding over ostentation, substance over spectacle. The evening's true beneficiaries weren't in this ballroom at all, but in hospital beds across the city, their futures now brighter because someone who could have lived solely for herself had chosen instead to live for others. As the evening progressed, Sarah found herself momentarily alone, studying the rendering of Lily's butterfly haven. The garden's design included special accommodations for hospital beds and wheelchairs, allowing even the most critically ill children to experience nature's healing presence. It's beautiful, came a voice Olivia's, her tone now stripped of its earlier condescension. Sarah turned. It will be. Olivia hesitated, then spoke with unexpected sincerity. Why didn't you say something when we were? When I was? Would it have mattered? Sarah asked. Should it matter? Olivia fell silent, confronting questions that had never before penetrated her carefully constructed world. My worth onions worth measured by their bank account or family name, Sarah continued gently. The children I visited this morning don't care about designer labels or social connections. They care about kindness, about being seen for who they are, not what they have or how they look. I've never considered it that way, Olivia admitted, the honesty seeming to surprise even herself. Few of us do until something forces us to, Sarah replied. She gestured toward the hospital rendering. Every child who comes through these doors deserves to be treated with the same dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstance, just as every person in this room deserves the same, regardless of their dress or pedigree. Olivia's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. I behaved abhorrently. Yes, Sarah agreed simply. The question is, what will you do with that realization? Before Olivia could respond, Director Harrison called for attention. The room quieted as he prepared to unveil the donor wall. Names of contributors would be immortalized in order of their donations, with Sarah at the very top. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound gratitude that we recognize those whose generosity will make our new children's wing possible. These names represent not just financial contributions, but investments in our community's future. As the velvet covering was pulled away, gasps rippled through the crowd. Where Sarah Morgan's name should have appeared at the top of the donor wall was instead a simple inscription in honor of Lily and all children fighting battles beyond their years. Your courage inspires our commitment. Director Harrison looked toward Sarah, who gave a small nod. Ms. Morgan has requested that her contribution remain anonymous on our permanent installation, he explained, his voice thick with emotion. She believes the true focus should remain on the children we serve. The ballroom fell silent as the implication of her choice sank in. Sarah had rejected the very recognition that most in this room coveted above all else. Her $25 million donation would forever be attributed not to her name, but to the children themselves. It was perhaps the most powerful statement she could have made, a rejection of the very hierarchy that had led Olivia and her friends to dismiss her in the first place. Olivia turned to Sarah, tears glistening in her eyes. For the first time that evening, perhaps for the first time in years, spoke without calculation or pretense. "You've shown me something tonight I desperately needed to see," she whispered. "Thank you." Sarah's smile was genuine. We all need reminding sometimes that our true worth isn't in what we have, but in what we give. As conversations resumed around them, Sarah slipped quietly toward the exit. Her purpose for the evening had been accomplished, not just the donation, but perhaps something equally valuable, a seed of transformation planted in unexpected soil. 6 months later, sunshine spilled through the windows of Lily's Butterfly Haven as Sarah guided a wheelchair-bound little girl toward a monarch butterfly, resting on a purple coneflower. "See how the wings open and close," Sarah pointed. "They're drying in the sun, gathering strength for flight." Lily's delicate fingers reached out, not quite touching. "Just like me," she whispered. "I'm gaining strength too." Sarah squeezed the 8-year-old's shoulder gently. "Exactly like you." The garden had exceeded even Sarah's vision, a sanctuary where healing transcended medicine alone. Flowering plants chosen specifically to attract butterflies created bursts of color against lush greenery. Accessible pathways wound through the space, ensuring every child, regardless of mobility challenges, could experience its wonders. "Ms. Morgan," called a nurse from the doorway. "The dedication ceremony begins in 10 minutes. Sarah nodded. "Ready for your big moment, butterfly girl?" Lily grinned, the gap where her front teeth had been adding to her charm. "Born ready," she replied, repeating the phrase her doctors used before treatments. As Sarah wheeled Lily toward the new hospital wing's main atrium, she felt a peculiar sense of fulfillment from the building itself. Impressive as it was with its state-of-the-art technology and child-centered design, but from the lives it would transform. The atrium buzzed with activity. Hospital staff, patients, and their families, media representatives, and major donors gathered for the official opening. Sarah spotted Dr. Bennett speaking with the hospital board near the podium. And there, arranging children from the oncology ward into a small choir, was Olivia Blackwell. Olivia looked up, catching Sarah's eye. Her smile was genuine as she crossed the room. "Lily, our star singer has arrived," she greeted, kneeling to the child's eye level with natural ease. Gone was the condescension that had once colored her interactions. In its place was authentic warmth. Over the past 6 months, Olivia had undergone a transformation as remarkable as the building they stood in. What began as embarrassment had evolved into genuine self-reflection and, ultimately, action. She'd resigned from 3 social committees to devote her time to the hospital's patient support programs, working directly with families navigating the terrifying landscape of childhood illness. "The children are so excited," Olivia told Sarah, rising to her feet. "They've been practicing their song for weeks." Sarah nodded. "It sounds beautiful. Mozart would approve." "It was your idea to have them perform," Olivia reminded her. "You said their voices should be the first heard in this space." "You were right." Director Harrison approached, clipboard in hand. "We're ready to begin. Ms. Morgan, would you and Lily take your places by the ribbon?" The ceremony unfolded with dignified simplicity. Speeches remained mercifully brief, focused on the children who would benefit rather than the adults who had contributed. When Lily and 3 other young patients cut the ribbon together, their faces radiant with importance, there wasn't a dry eye in the atrium. Afterward, as attendees toured the new facility, Sarah found herself alone with Olivia near Lily's Butterfly Haven. "I owe you an apology," Olivia said, watching butterflies drift between flowers, "not just for that night, but for a lifetime of measuring people by the wrong metrics." Sarah shook her head. "You've apologized enough. Your actions these past months speak louder than any words could." Olivia smiled ruefully. "Victoria and Rebecca think I've lost my mind spending my days with sick children, instead of planning charity luncheons. Positively scandalous." "And what do you think?" Sarah asked. I think I was asleep for most of my life, Olivia replied simply, making judgments based on appearances, collecting connections instead of creating meaning. She gestured toward the children exploring the garden. They've taught me more about living than 50 years in Boston society ever did. Sarah nodded. They have a way of stripping life down to its essentials. My husband doesn't quite understand, Olivia admitted. He's supportive but confused by the new me. Yesterday he asked when I'd be rejoining the country club committee. And what did you tell him? Olivia laughed. That I'm too busy helping plan the hospital's new sibling support program. The look on his face was priceless. Their conversation paused as Lily wheeled herself over to a newly emerged butterfly, perched on a feeding station. What she doesn't know, Olivia said quietly, is that her mother works 2 jobs to pay for treatments insurance won't cover. I've established a foundation to help families like hers. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. Sarah's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. Olivia, that's wonderful. It's a beginning, Olivia replied. You showed me that wealth brings responsibility, not just privilege. I can't donate $25 million, but I can make a difference in my own way. Sarah smiled. That's all any of us can do. As they watched Lily carefully coax a butterfly onto her finger, her face alight with wonder, Olivia spoke again, her voice reflective. That night at the gala wasn't really about the money, was it? Your point, I mean. No, Sarah acknowledged. It was about seeing beyond surfaces. About recognizing that true worth isn't reflected in clothes or bank accounts or social standing. I judged you by your dress, Olivia said quietly. And now, Sarah asked. Olivia's gaze shifted to Lily, then back to Sarah. Now I try to see people as they are, not as they appear. It's harder than it sounds. The most meaningful changes usually are, Sarah replied. A nurse approached, letting them know the children's choir was assembling for their final performance. As they walked back toward the atrium, Olivia paused. Thank you, she said simply, for the humbling I needed, and for the opportunity to become someone better. Sarah squeezed her hand briefly. We're all works in progress, Olivia. The butterfly doesn't start out with wings. Together, they joined the gathering in the sunlit atrium, where children's voices soon filled the space with song, a chorus of hope rising from those who understood better than most the precious nature of each day and the true meaning of transformation. 3 years after the opening of Lily's Butterfly Haven, Sarah Morgan stood at the window of her modest office overlooking Boston Harbor. The space was functional rather than opulent, bookshelves lined with medical journals and children's literature, walls adorned with framed artwork created by pediatric patients. A small desk held a single photograph, Sarah at age 12, bald from chemotherapy, smiling broadly between her parents. The Morgan Foundation had grown exponentially since that fateful charity gala. What began as a personal mission had evolved into one of the nation's most respected medical research foundations, funding innovative treatments and support programs for children with cancer. Yet despite her organization's expanding influence, Sarah maintained her unassuming lifestyle, preferring substance to show. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Ms. Morgan, your 2 o'clock is here, announced her assistant. Sarah turned from the window. Send them in, please. The door opened to reveal Olivia Blackwell, elegant as ever, but with a softer demeanor than the woman who had once dismissed Sarah for her simple attire. Behind her stood a teenage girl with a bright purple headscarf, her face thin but her eyes vibrant with life. Sarah, Olivia greeted warmly, embracing her now close friend. I'd like you to meet Madison. She's one of our first scholarship recipients. Sarah extended her hand to the girl. It's wonderful to meet you, Madison. I've heard remarkable things about your academic achievements. Madison smiled shyly. Thank you for creating this opportunity, Ms. Morgan. When I was diagnosed last year, I thought my college dreams were over. My parents were already struggling with medical bills. The Blackwell Educational Foundation exists precisely for students like you, Sarah replied, gesturing for them to sit. Though I can't take credit, this was entirely Olivia's vision. Olivia shook her head. Inspired by you. After the hospital wing opened, I couldn't stop thinking about what happens to these children beyond their medical care. Education seemed the natural next step. The Blackwell Educational Foundation had become Olivia's passion project, providing college scholarships for pediatric cancer survivors and their siblings. What began as a personal donation had grown into a substantial organization, with corporate partnerships and an annual fundraising gala that had replaced many of Boston's more frivolous social events. Madison has been accepted to Harvard's pre-med program, Olivia announced proudly. She wants to become a pediatric oncologist. Dr. Bennett will be thrilled, Sarah replied. He's always recruiting promising students. Madison leaned forward eagerly. Actually, that's partly why we're here. I'm working on my application essay, and I wanted to interview you both about the partnership between your foundations. Everyone at the hospital talks about how you two changed everything, not just the medical care, but the whole approach to supporting families. Sarah and Olivia exchanged glances, both amused by the suggestion they had become something of a legend among hospital staff and patients. We'd be happy to help with your essay, Sarah said, though I think the story begins before our partnership with a beige dress and some rather unfortunate assumptions. Olivia laughed. The embarrassment of that night now transformed into a valuable lesson she shared openly. I was a different person than Simeon, who measured worth by appearance and status. Sarah taught me that true value lies elsewhere. It wasn't just me, Sarah countered. You were ready for change, the right catalyst at the right moment. As they settled into conversation, Madison took out her notebook. Dr. Bennett mentioned something about butterflies being significant to your story. Could you explain that? Sarah smiled. Butterflies represent transformation, shunting both Olivia and I understand intimately, though in different ways. My transformation came through surviving childhood cancer. Olivia's came through recognizing my own prejudices, Olivia finished candidly, and choosing to become someone better. Madison nodded thoughtfully. Like metamorphosis. Exactly, Sarah agreed, which is why Lily's Butterfly Haven became so symbolic. It wasn't just a garden for the children. It represented a philosophy that transformation is possible, both physically and spiritually. Speaking of transformation, Olivia interjected, setting her purse aside. We have some news about Rebecca and Victoria. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Your former partners in social crime? I haven't heard you mention them in months. Olivia's expression was a mixture of satisfaction and hope. Rebecca reached out last week. She's been following our work from a distance. Apparently, her niece was recently diagnosed with leukemia, and suddenly everything we've been doing makes personal sense to her. I'm sorry about her niece, Sarah said sincerely. Is there anything we can do? That's just it. Wants to help. She's offered to chair our annual fundraiser. Said she's tired of meaningless social obligations and wants to put her event planning skills to actual use. And Victoria? Sarah asked. Olivia's smile widened. That's the real surprise. Victoria's husband is CEO of Hamilton Industries. She convinced him to establish a corporate matching program for employee donations to pediatric cancer research. They've already raised over $2 million. Sarah leaned back in her chair, genuinely surprised. Well, it seems the ripple effect continues. Madison looked between them, pen poised over her notebook. Ripple effect. When one person changes, Sarah explained, it affects others. Olivia's transformation influenced her social circle, which in turn influenced others. The hospital wing was just the beginning. It's like dropping a stone in water, Olivia added. You can't control how far the ripples travel or what they touch, but they keep moving outward. Madison wrote furiously. That's a perfect metaphor for my essay. The medical care saved lives, but your social impact saved souls. Sarah laughed. That might be overstating things a bit. I don't think so, Madison replied earnestly. My mom used to clean houses for families in Beacon Hill. She said the way some of those women treated her. She hesitated, glancing at Olivia. It's all right, Olivia encouraged gently. I was once one of those women. Acknowledging our flaws is the first step toward changing them. Madison nodded gratefully. After I got sick, Mom couldn't work as much because she needed to take me to treatments. We almost lost our apartment. Then the Blackwell Foundation stepped in with emergency housing assistance. Mom said it wasn't just the money, it was being treated with dignity that mattered most. Olivia's eyes glistened. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman. I'd love to meet her someday. "She's actually waiting downstairs," Madison replied. She wouldn't come up because she didn't want to intrude on important business. Sarah and Olivia exchanged glances again, a wordless communication born of years of friendship and shared purpose. "Madison," Sarah said decisively, "please call your mother and invite her up. Then I think we should all have lunch. There's a lovely cafe across the street with an excellent view of the harbor." "But your schedule," her assistant began from the doorway. "Can be rearranged," Sarah finished firmly. Some conversations matter more than meetings. As Madison stepped out to call her mother, Olivia turned to Sarah. "You know, when I woke up this morning, I had the strangest thought. I wondered what would have happened if you hadn't come to the gala that night, or if I hadn't been so insufferably condescending." Sarah considered this. "I suspect the hospital wing would still have been built. My donation wasn't contingent on teaching Boston socialites a lesson. But everything else," Olivia pressed. "The Blackwell Foundation, Victoria's corporate initiative, Rebecca's awakening, none of that would exist." "Perhaps not in the same form," Sarah acknowledged. "But I believe people find their way to meaning eventually. Some just need a more dramatic push than others." Olivia laughed. "Is that what you call it? A push? You upended my entire worldview. For the better, I hope." Without question, Olivia's expression grew serious. "Sometimes I still feel embarrassed remembering how I treated you that night. The judgment, the condescension. And yet," Sarah reminded her, "that very behavior created the conditions for everything that followed. Our flaws often become the foundation for our greatest contributions, once we recognize them." The door opened as Madison returned with her mother, a petite woman, with the same expressive eyes as her daughter, dressed simply but neatly in clothes that spoke of careful budgeting and priorities, that favored her child's needs over her own. "Ms. Morgan, Ms. Blackwell," Madison began. "This is my mother, Elena Ramirez." Elena stood hesitantly at the threshold, the ingrained deference of someone accustomed to being invisible in wealthy spaces evident in her posture. Olivia rose immediately and crossed the room, extending her hand with genuine warmth. "Elena, I'm so pleased to meet you. Your daughter is extraordinary, a testament to your guidance and support." Elena's surprise at this welcome was quickly replaced by maternal pride. Madison has always been determined. Even during the worst of her treatments, she kept up with her studies, a quality that will serve her well in medical school, Sarah added, joining them. "We were just about to have lunch. Would you join us? I'd love to hear more about Madison's journey and yours." As the four women left the office, Sarah caught Olivia's eye. In that glance was shared understanding of how far they'd come, of lives transformed, of a simple truth that had once eluded Olivia, that worth was measured not by appearance or status, but by character and contribution. The gala redux. 6 months later, the Hawthorne Ballroom once again glittered with crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. But this was not the same exclusive event where Sarah and Olivia's paths had first crossed. Tonight's gala, co-hosted by the Morgan and Blackwell Foundations, had deliberately upended Boston's traditional social hierarchy. For every wealthy donor in attendance, there was a family who had benefited from the foundation's work. Medical staff stood alongside patients, corporate executives mingled with hospital volunteers. The guest list had been carefully curated to ensure that those who contributed financially would meet those who gave in other, equally valuable ways: time, expertise, compassion. Sarah surveyed the room from a quiet corner, dressed in another simple outfit, as one a deep blue that matched her eyes. The simplicity was now a trademark, a gentle reminder of authenticity in a world often obsessed with appearances. "Admiring your handiwork," came a voice beside her. "Dr." Bennett approached, older now but still vibrant, his bow tie slightly askew as always. "Our handiwork," Sarah corrected. "None of this happens without the medical team's dedication." He nodded toward the center of the room, where Lilino 11 and in remission was showing a group of corporate donors her science fair project on butterfly migration patterns. "She's quite the ambassador. Harvard will be recruiting her before long." "She reminds me of Madison," Sarah observed. "That same determination." "Speaking of determination, Doctor," Bennett said, "have you seen tonight's donor total? We've already surpassed last year's record, and the evening's barely begun." Sarah smiled. "People respond to authenticity. When they see real impact, they open their hearts and their checkbooks. Across the room, Olivia was deep in conversation with Victoria and Rebecca, all three women now united in purpose rather than social competition. Their transformation from social arbiters to community leaders had been remarkable to witness Victoria channeling her husband's corporate resources toward meaningful causes, Rebecca applying her event planning expertise to fundraisers that actually changed lives. Ms. Morgan called a young voice. Lily approached, pulling along a distinguished older gentleman in an impeccably tailored suit. "This is Mr. Wells. He doesn't believe me that you named the butterfly garden after me." Jonathan Welst, $5 million donor Olivia, had once used as a social measuring stick, bowed slightly. "The young lady has been educating me about monarch migration patterns and your foundation's work. I'm impressed by both. Lily is one of our finest ambassadors," Sarah replied. "And yes, the garden bears her name because she embodies everything we believe in: resilience, transformation, and the capacity to inspire others." "She's certainly inspired me," Wells admitted. "I've been writing the same donation check for years without much thought to its impact. Tonight has been illuminating." "That's precisely what we hoped for," Sarah said. Connection changes perspective. As Wells excused himself to speak with Dr. Bennett, Lily tugged at Sarah's sleeve. "There's a new girl in the cancer ward," she whispered. "She's really scared. Could I show her the butterfly garden tomorrow? I think it would help." Sarah knelt to Lily's level. "That's a wonderful idea. What's her name?" "Sophia. She's only 6. Lily's expression reflected both empathy and determination. "I told her I was scared too, but that butterflies taught me about being brave through changes." "You're a very wise teacher, Lily," Sarah said softly. "I'll make sure the nurses know you're coming to visit." As Lily skipped away to rejoin her parents, Olivia approached, champagne flute in hand. "Another convert?" she asked, nodding toward Wells, who was now writing something in his checkbook. "Lily's doing," Sarah replied. "She has a way of cutting through pretense, a quality she shares with her mentor," Olivia observed wryly. "Remember when you asked me if it should matter whether people knew about your wealth?" "I remember. I've been thinking about that question a lot lately. The answer seems so obvious now, but then," Olivia shook her head, "it's like I was living in a different reality." "You were," Sarah said simply. "We all create realities that confirm our existing beliefs. Breaking free requires a willingness to see differently." Olivia nodded toward the center of the room, where Eleanor Ramirez was speaking with the hospital's board chairman, her natural dignity and intelligence evident in her bearing. "Elena has accepted our offer to join the Blackwell Foundation's Family Support Committee. Her perspective as both a parent and someone who's navigated the financial challenges of serious illness will be invaluable." "Perfect," Sarah approved. "The best solutions come from those who've lived the problem." Director Harrison tapped a microphone at the front of the room, calling for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have a moment of your time." The crowd quieted, turning expectantly toward the stage, where Harrison stood flanked by large covered easels. 3 years ago, we gathered in this very room to celebrate the creation of our pediatric oncology wing. Tonight, we celebrate something even more remarkable: the community that has grown around it." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. The Morgan and Blackwell Foundations have transformed not just our hospital's capabilities, but our entire approach to supporting children and families facing cancer. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce our next collaborative project. With a dramatic flourish, Harrison unveiled the first easel, revealing architectural renderings of a multi-story building. "The Morgan Blackwell Family Center," he announced, "will provide temporary housing for families whose children require extended treatment, educational support for patients and siblings, career counseling for parents who must leave jobs to care for sick children, and comprehensive wellness services." Applause erupted throughout the ballroom. Sarah and Olivia exchanged surprised glances. They had been involved in the planning, but hadn't expected the announcement tonight. Additionally, Harrison continued, unveiling the second easel. "We are establishing the Butterfly Effect Research Initiative, dedicated to developing less traumatic treatment protocols for pediatric cancer patients." As the crowd's enthusiasm grew, Harrison gestured towards Sarah and Olivia. None of this would be possible without the vision and partnership of these two remarkable women. Would you both please join me on stage? As they made their way forward, Olivia whispered to Sarah, "Did you know about this?" "The research initiative, yes." "The name, no," Sarah replied. "Appropriate, though, don't you think?" "Perfectly," Olivia agreed as they ascended the steps to stand beside Harrison. "Ms. Morgan, Ms. Blackwell," Harrison addressed them directly, though his microphone ensured the entire room could hear. "Your collaboration has demonstrated what becomes possible when we focus on impact rather than recognition, on substance rather than appearance." He turned back to the audience. 3 years ago, a chance encounter in this very room sparked a transformation that has touched countless lives. Tonight, we honor not just the financial contributions that make our work possible, but the human connections that give it meaning. As Harrison continued outlining the new initiatives, Sarah surveyed the room. Here were Boston's wealthy and powerful, yes, but also nurses, social workers, patients, parents, researchers, and volunteers. A true community united by purpose rather than privilege. Later, as the evening wound down, Sarah found herself once again at the window overlooking the city lights. Olivia joined her, to flutes of champagne in hand. To butterflies, Olivia proposed, offering one to Sarah, and the changes they inspire. Sarah accepted the glass. To seeing beyond appearances. They clinked glasses gently, the crystal making a clear, pure sound. "I received an interesting proposal today," Sarah said after a moment. "The governor wants to establish a state commission on healthcare equity, focusing on ensuring quality care regardless of socioeconomic status. He's asked me to chair it. You'll accept, of course," Olivia replied, not a question, but a statement of certainty. "I'm considering it. The scope is much broader than our current work systemic rather than programmatic change, which is precisely why you should do it," Olivia insisted. "Individual programs can transform lives one at a time, but policy changes can transform entire systems." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "He mentioned you as well, said your perspective as someone who's seen both sides would be valuable." Olivia laughed softly. From social gatekeeper to healthcare equity advocate, life takes unexpected turns. The best ones usually do, Sarah agreed. Like a beige dress at a black tie gala, or a chance encounter that changes everything, Olivia added, as they stood side by side, watching Boston's lights twinkle against the night sky. The contrast between this moment and their first meeting couldn't have been more profound. What began as a social miscalculation had blossomed into a partnership that transformed not just individual lives, but entire systems of care and support. And it all started with a simple truth, that worth is measured not by what we possess or how we appear, but by what we contribute and who we become. In the pediatric ward across town, a butterfly emerged from its chrysalis in the garden named for a little girl who had once been afraid. Its wings still damp, still fragile, slow opened and closed, gathering strength for flight. By morning, it would soar, joining others in an intricate dance of color and movement. A living reminder that the most beautiful transformations often begin in the most unlikely places.